Okay, we're going to begin our paper sessions now, and I'm very, very pleased to introduce the author of the paper GigaPan, Imagery and Archaeology at the Sanctuary of the Great Gods. Our author is Professor Vicki Stover Hertzberg. Vicki is an associate professor in the Department of Biostatistics in the Rollins School of Public for Emory University. She also is an associate professor in the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science in Emory College. She received her undergraduate degree from Miami University, Ohio in 1976 and her PhD from the University of Washington in 1980. She's a member of the American Medical Informatics Association and the External Advisor Committee for Randomized Trial of Indomethacin for Intraventricular Hemorrhage at Yale University. Vicki Hertzberg's statistical interest consists of public health informatics, clinical trials methodology, reproductive data analysis, environmental statistics, and statistical applications in stroke and genetics. What a cool set of interests.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's really kind of daunting to be up here and to be showing our photographs, but I want to thank you for being here. On your tables, you'll find handouts. Since I'm a professor by nature, I always give handouts, and so the slides are there copied. If there's not enough on your table, I'm sure there's enough on another table. They start at the top left and read across and then go to the next row. As Ila said, I'm a biostatistician actually by training, and got involved through the kindness of a friend in a work in doing statistical work in archaeology, which has taken me to the island of Samothrace, or Samothrace as the natives call it, in Greece. And as a result of that, I've gone for 3 seasons now, became the deputy GigaPanner on the team. And so I'm pleased to be here today to present work that's being done jointly with Michael Page, who is a mild-mannered geospatial librarian, geographer by background, but he's a tiger behind the camera, as well as Professor Bono Westcoat, who's a professor of art history, archaeologist, all of us from Emory University. My colleague Bono has been involved in the excavation at the Sanctuary of the Great Gods on the island of Samothrace since 1976. And over the last few years, she's recruited both Michael and me to collaborate with her on questions that have arisen from this work. So I'll be presenting selected images from over 30 GigaPans, which we've taken, Michael and I, over the last 2 years as part of developing our website, samothrace.emory.edu. Here's our banner. And we want to use GigaPan as just one novel method for visualizing the site. In doing this visualization, we want to better understand the site and experience of the initiate. The site was the site of a mystery cult, and people were initiated into this. So we want to understand what happened as part of that initiation process. We also want to record site condition to aid in conservation and management. The Greek government just got a huge grant from the European Union in order to do this, and we're part of that team undertaking that effort that will kick off in the 2011 field season. We also want to use our visualization tools to communicate the complex terrain of the site, the magnificent architecture, as well as to show the other artifacts there to both the scholarly audience as well as to the general public. So in my talk today, I wanted to describe to you the project which I've done and tell you a little bit more about the site, briefly describe the methods that we use, and then show you some of the representative panoramas. And then I've got a few discussion items, some issues that we've had that I'm sure many of you have had, a wish list, some of which I'm actually seeing are not wishes but reality, as well as future goals that are our future goals, and then some further reading if you're interested. Samothrace is a tiny windswept island in the northeastern Aegean. It emerges slowly from the mist of the Aegean Sea. Whoops. And it's at this point that you can begin to see it. And it would be, here's the road, I always use the road, and over here is the Gadalusi Tower, and it's right up in here. And here we come coming into the modern port city. And the island rises from sea level to over 1 mile high to the top of Mount Fangari, which also is the highest point in northeastern Greece. From there, one can see the plains of Troy. Homer wrote in the Iliad that Poseidon watched the Trojan War from the peak of Mount Fangari. Here's the view, again from the ferry. Here's the Gadalusi Tower, and the sanctuary is right up in here. Right there. And we're going to be going to the Sanctuary of the Great Gods. The sanctuary itself is in a spectacular setting. This is a panorama taken up from up on top of the hill, and you'll see that it pans from the Gadalusi Tower over here all the way, and here is the sanctuary itself. And I could actually go in and show you here. Except I have the wrong one. So. And this is a GigaPan that Michael Page took. Our characteristic site is, here's a stoa, which is used for people to sleep while they were there, participating in cult activities. It's one of the longest stoas in northern Greece. We see the columns of the Huron, which is one of the most sacred buildings there on the site. And then over here, let's see. Right here we see this ring, which is the theatral circle. And we're going to be talking about views of the Huron, which is nested down in the central sanctuary, as well as views of the theatral circle here in a bit. Change to the next one. The sanctuary itself rose to prominence at the time of Philip II of Macedon, who allegedly met his future wife Olympias during their initiation on Samothrace. Their son, who you might know as Alexander the Great, resulted from this union. Philip II lavished great attention on the sanctuary. However, Alexander did not. He complained that his father did not achieve his full potential because he was busy loving the island. In the later 4th and 3rd centuries BC, the sanctuary became an international site for Macedonian royalty. In subsequent centuries, it became a pilgrimage place for Romans who traced their legendary ancestry to the island. And cult activity remained strong here until the late 4th century, actually AD, when the Byzantine Emperor Theodosius banned all cult activity, pagan cults. The rituals of the cult were not to be revealed. It was a mystery cult. And the initiates kept their silence well. Today, we know very little from ancient texts about the actual rituals that the initiates experienced. There's some writing by Herodotus that mentions the cult, but it does not describe the activities. In the book of Acts in the New Testament, we read of Paul visiting the island. So instead, we have to rely on the complex and sometimes contradictory archaeological record. Oops. I've lost my, there it is. Sorry about that. Perhaps the most famous relic of, in many of the relics found in ancient Greece, but what is the most famous relic found on this island is the famous winged Victory of Samothrace, the Nike, which now I'm told is the second most popular attraction in the Louvre. And it was one of the first relics found by modern excavators. The French team, directed by Charles Champoiseau, was there in the 1860s. He found this, it was headless, and he quickly jetted her back to the Louvre. There have been numerous expeditions there to the island since. There's the French team, followed by Czechs, Austrians, and most recently, an American team led by investigators from the Institute of Fine Arts at New York University have been there, and they have actually held the permit for excavation there since the late 1930s. And they've been there continuously ever since, except for a brief interruption due to World War II. In the past, the work has focused mainly on excavation, but that activity has slowed over the last few years, and site interpretation and management is becoming the priority. We're trying to catalog the various blocks that are there. We want to know how the stones were moved, where they came from, etc. I myself, my interest there is on the measurement. I'm a statistician, and I'm trying to determine what the Greek foot is. And so we're trying to go through a process of measuring the dimensions of every block there. And so this is kind of what I do. And it's, if it looks like Greek to you, it is. And there's my team there in our comfortable office there. What do we do here? Michael Page and I were there during the 2009-2010 field seasons. And we had 3 GigaPans between us. We both have beta units, and then he has an Epic 100. We were using 3 cameras. We had 3 GPS units. We're using an old version of the Stitcher. We've got a couple MacBooks that are carried with us. And then for purposes of uploading them to our site, we take them through the Stitcher, export them as .raw files, feed them into Photoshop, and then save them out as zoomified, and then they're uploaded in through Drupal to our website itself. Here's various maps of the site. Here's what Kanzi and Austrians saw in the 1870s. Lehman, there had been a great deal more excavation by then, by 1960, but you'll begin to notice the central sanctuary as well as activity up here. Jim McCready, who's actually still coming to the island and just recently retired as project director, discovered this. This is his map, most recent. And then my colleague Bana has made this color-coded map showing the actual state plan, which is here on the left, and then the reconstructed plan. And the color codes are to indicate the era of construction. This is a view of the island through Google Earth, taken from the north, and we're at approximately right there. If there are any geologists who would like to collaborate on this, it's a fascinating island. There's a huge iron thing. One of the things that the initiates got was a magnetized iron ring, but there's no magnet, there's no load on the island. There's lots of water, but there's no water in the sanctuary. I'm really curious. And there's a huge seismic something or other, and you'll have to excuse my poor knowledge, but this was very interesting to some tectonic sky I showed too. So here we are again, closer in on Google Earth. We stay here at this hotel. Here's the museum, and then we're up here in the site itself. Over here is the Gattelusi Tower. In ancient times, they came into this old city, Paliopolis, and they stayed here, and then initiates were led down across this and into the sanctuary like this way. We instead nowadays come in through an entrance over there. The site is cut by lots of rain that falls during the winter season, and so it gouges out these torrents that come down, and the site itself is formed by them. So there's a ravine that the water has created right here. That's where the initiates entered and crossed over this into this theatral circle. They were then led down into for initiation down here in the central sanctuary, where there's another gully for the water. And then again, there's the western hill. This is the eastern hill. The western hill, and then there's another torrent on the side of that. So this shows you some of the modern efforts to kind of channel that water a bit better. This is a modern reinforcement, and back here reinforcements that date back to the Roman era. Here we see again the torrents right here and coming right here, and then there's one off the map over here. And I want to look now at this site. This is the central sanctuary and 3 representative GigaPans that were taken there. Here it is again. This is flipped over. So the previous orientation, north was up here, but in this case, north is over here. So here we go, and so I'm going to show you 3 representative GigaPans from atop the theater, which is this one here, and then from the south, looking north towards the sea, and then from the north, looking back up the mountain. And so I need to do that. I need to go here. And so here is this one. We're up on top of a theater, looking down into the central sanctuary. We see the Huron, one of the most sacred buildings, and then the foundations of the altar court, including this little, these blocks here, which are meant to kind of give you a representation of what it must have looked like. We can actually then zoom in to see the detailed inscription on these blocks. So it has been, in our experience, a really powerful tool. Here we are looking at it from the south, and you'll notice here there's an inner wall that's apsidal, which is a very interesting construction in Greek architecture. You'll notice the columns that have been reconstructed to give a sense of what it looked like. And then these, here's a bathros, which is where it's thought the initiations offered libations to the gods. And then finally, here's the sanctuary to the north, from the north. And you'll see here, we can look, here's what's called the sacred rock. And we can zoom in to get more finer detail on that. We can move around, and we can begin then to see the foundations of both the Huron here, but then there's another building with an older and then a newer foundation that we get the sense of here. And then next I want to show you the Eastern Hill. This is from the propylon looking north again, and you see the Eastern Hill of the theatral circle rings there. This is where it is on the map. And we're going to take it from approximately right there looking this direction. Again, here it is on Google Earth, this area right here. Taken from about here looking this way. This is a photograph from its discovery back in the 70s and its excavation, and here's an aerial view of it. We use the field collected data to draw what's called an actual state plan. And then here is a reconstruction of it with another building here. And then we get this, which is called, here's that building, and here you see the rings, a non-perspectival cross-sectional or reconstructed cross-section. So here it is, and we're going to go in again. And again, we can zoom in to say, oh, gee, I'm not so sure I like the way what's going on with this rock right here, this collection of stones in here. That might be a concern for future management at the site. Okay. We're doing other things visually, like we've done a digital reconstruction of what it must have looked like back in the day. And these were actually statues that no longer exist, but we have the basis for them. And this is to give you the feeling of what the initiate must have experienced. The initiations took place at night. So the GigaPan is proving to be a very powerful tool, despite our need to overcome several issues in image capture and photo processing. Our first is one of power and memory. Here is a collection of about 2/3 of the batteries that I used up during my first season there. And this last summer I was much smarter, and I took with me 16 rechargeable batteries as well as 2 4 at a time battery chargers, so I could do 8 for 6 for the robot and then 2 for the camera per morning and then per afternoon session, and then the 8 others were charging in between. We don't have good power there in the museum, and we are daisy chaining extension cords all over the place. We also need to have a reasonable size memory card in order to have everything captured during one shooting session, which is about, for my camera at least, about 500 shots. I'm just a person who likes a digital camera to take pictures of my travels and my kids, but then when you add software on top of it, I'm all over it, and so that's how I became really enthused about this. Had some difficulty in terms of post-process color correction. Here's a shot of the western hill, the northern, looking out to the north, that I did in 2009, and you'll see this streakiness as well as the differential here as the sky faded into the sea. Whereas this is from about the same perspective, and this is just a screenshot crop from a GigaPan, and it came out, there's still a slight streakiness, but I don't get this horizontal effect. But right here, I don't know what happened, where there's just a real differential between this corner of the sky versus this, probably a cloud. There's an issue of processing time. Michael took this Mount Fangari, and he has yet to been able to successfully stitch these together. Wind is an incredible issue for us. There's a rapidly changing environment, especially in high winds. There's clouds, there's leaf movement, and these all affect the quality of our panoramas. Here you'll see Michael's shirt is being gusted up in the wind, and he's actually physically holding the tripod down. For us, it's important to really keep the human factor out of our GigaPans in order to have these for true record keeping. But given all this, the value is just tremendous beyond what I feel are, for the most part, easily surmountable issues other than the wind. And so what are the values? And we feel that they come in 3 main areas. One is the experience of place, the next is that of conservation and management, and finally the opportunity it gives us for open access. In terms of experience of place, it enhances, and I'll just use the term peripheral vision, in terms of being able to look out into the distance, but also you've got this awareness of what's going on in the periphery that you have in real life. And the GigaPan really brings that home to you. You can understand the buildings in context, and you can study the site at the researcher's own, at your own pace. So for instance, here's the grand perspective on this dining room area, but you can zoom in right here to this rock and get the detail, being able to study this in a way that you couldn't before. And our plan is to hyperlink GigaPans as well. For conservation and management, you can understand the site as a whole as well as each individual stone. You need to do this, though, in a standard manner with a standard list of shots from fixed points, and to create this and amalgamate this all into a geodatabase. And so you get things like this detail here, what's going on, that you can keep your eye on over time. The open access opportunities, it eases the travel burden, allows for comparative analysis at the desktop, giving a much richer record for preservation, architectural detail, and geographic context than ordinary photography, video, or traditional panoramics. Travel to Samothrace is not for the faint of heart, but here we've been able to go for just this short time this morning from Pittsburgh all the way to Greece. We're hoping that there's improved photogrammetric tools, memory card for the robot to capture metadata would be grand, helping us to figure out how to boost the power, possibly a solar source, some sort of external source, as well as improved camera battery access when the camera is actually mounted. More user control over stitcher settings, linkage easy to GigaPans by other researchers, improved annotation such as rollover notes, streamlined presentation, a better way to embed these so I'm not having to toggle between the two. And then 3D GigaPans, which is not as much of a wish as we were thinking just the other day. For future, we're going to be creating georeferenced images and integrating them with our GIS, refining our list of GigaPans to take at fixed frequencies. We want to take advantage of third-party software, for instance, AutoCAN or Gigo, to extend our functionality, and develop a streamlined workflow from image capture on the island to database and website integration in the off-season. Here's a list of things for further reading. I want to thank Emory University, NYU, a grant we got for collaborative research in the humanities, as well as Dimitri Matsas from the Greek government. Thank you. Michael is Waypoints at GigaPan, or Michael.page, and I am V. Hertzberg. And thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.